Hello, and welcome back to Owens Bay. Right now we're just going to fly over to the location we're going to be building on today, the hotel at the far end of the lake, which you might have spotted in last week's episode. But we're going to keep on going. For this particular episode, we need a bit more context, and that context is located over in the town of Ravens Peak. This also gives us an opportunity to fly over a few areas we haven't seen for a while. We need to revisit the Bosman brewery right down here. Wait, hold on. Wait. Back up. The Bosman brewery. So when I created this custom building here, I mentioned that I might be creating a bit of a family backstory for the Bosman family. And that's what we're going to be working on today, the Bosman family estate, or more precisely, the former Bosman family estate. My name is Geifs, and let's get started. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a fun project. My intention here was always to put a hotel at the far end of the lake here, and as I was working on the town adjacent to it, I kind of thought of a bit of a backstory. The hotel itself is the historic family residence of the Bosman family, a very influential family in the region. Which was converted into a hotel and like big tourist attraction with a botanical garden, probably about 30 years in the past, I would say. Actual dates are not that important. Now, the idea I came up with was this lake is created by a reservoir, and that reservoir was, the dam that created the reservoir was built by the Bosman family to create a reservoir for their mill, which we will see in a little bit here. When putting down the hotel, or pretty much any asset, the parking lots that usually come attached to the buildings, I always find them rather annoying. They are awkwardly placed and usually not anywhere large enough for the functions of the building. So I stripped off the parking lot from the hotel, and I'm going to make my own. I also stripped away all the assets in the front of the building. Whenever possible, you get much better result if you do a bit of customization and make your own features around the building. Okay, here's the mill, and it's in a bit of a weird location, isn't it? It's up at the top of the hill here by the side of this lake, and it might be like, why would it be up here? It makes no sense. And so the backstory I kind of came up with was sometime back in the past, there was like a 100-year flood that took out the dam that the original dam that the Bosman family made. And then there was this huge dispute between the town and the family of who should rebuild the dam. And the family wanted this town to build it, and the town, because it was on Bosman family property, the town wanted the family to build it. The compromise was the town built the dam, but the family had to give up the land that the dam was on, and that's how the park around the dam got created as well. This led to kind of this bitter relationship between the family and the town, and eventually the family decides to vacate the property to move to a much more luxurious oceanside property. And what they decide to do with the property is turn it into a resort. Right here, I didn't like the key walls. Sometimes, you want something a little different. The decals don't stick to the key walls, so I'm making a false wall here with the prop pillars. So the prop pillars don't interact with the ground, and with the prop pillars on the sides, I can paste decals to them and create this rather attractive retaining wall. And I'm going to use some bushes and shrubs to hide all the imperfections here. And I'm using the prop vegetation so I can recolor them. This here is the apple trees sunk into the ground and recolored to look like flowering bushes. So with this hotel, the main feature is it's overlooking the lake. So I didn't want the parking lot in the very front. That made no sense. It really just messes up this beautiful view. So stripping it away and putting in my own things here with the fountain and the benches and a nice viewing platform, it looks a lot better. The thing that surprised me here was the botanical gardens with the hotel actually created something that actually functions properly. I was not expecting that hotel to actually be usable, but people are using it. Right here, what I'm doing, and somebody give me some feedback here. I'm assuming I'm taking the tomb from the cemetery. I'm actually placing it as part of the cemetery, but I'm using Anarchy to place it up on top of the hill here. The tomb gives tourist bonuses, and I'm assuming that still works even though it's not placed within the cemetery. So for the town of Farwell, they get more tourism. I don't know if that's how that works, but let me know. Right here, I am building some boathouses, and we're just going to use a barn to make those. And carports to make the docks. This is my first time really using the Control-C copy mod, and I'm going to be using much more of that in the future. That's a lot of fun. Using some of Harbor Master Jay's wooden stairs here to make the docks accessible. Right here, I am attempting to make a boat launch using the carport for the wooden dock and the prop pillars to create the actual ramp for the boats. And I'm going to use some logs here. I'm going to tip them over on their ends. And now I'm making this little structure around the end of the dock. I don't know what it is I'm making here. something stuck in my memory from somewhere, and I'm trying to replicate it here. If I've made something that actually is functional, somebody let me know. I'm not sure if it's functional or just decorative at this point. Here I'm using the new Netlane paths. Sorry, I can't remember the person who created the mod at the moment. These are great. They are, I think when you're using these, you have to remember that they're not paths, they're net lanes. So they have a few little quirks to them, but once you work with them a little bit and understand the quirks, they're pretty easy to use and the results are really quite nice. Once again, I'm going to be using some of Harbor Master Jay's stairs here to create some walkways. And I'm using these prop pillars. I forget where I got these from, but they have a nicer finished edge on them. And I'm recoloring the logs to kind of that creosote soap appearance that the piers sometimes have. I didn't get the color quite right. It came up more of a chocolate brown. It's kind of hard to adjust the colors sometimes. And I found these door decals, which look quite good for the doors to the boat sheds. Here you can see some of the issues you might encounter when using the Netlane paths. You have to kind of be very mindful of how they connect together, otherwise they overlap in odd ways. But it's just, once you understand how they work, it's not that difficult to figure it out. I thought it would be fun to create a pier for people to walk out on. Sit on the lake and watch the sunset, I guess. For the railing of the dock, I had to find a flat piece of ground to work on. Just lay out long stretches of fence and then use Move It to move chunks of it into place. And the same idea for the benches. This is pretty finicky to do. It with a lot of different props all piled on top of each other like this. If you need to select a certain prop, sometimes it can be very difficult to select the prop you actually need. Yeah, you can see there how I'm having a little bit of trouble trying to line it up. It doesn't really occur to me, but I could just use Move It to adjust it afterwards. I don't know why I didn't think of that at the time. And there was so many people showing up at the hotel, I had to add a second parking lot. The hotel has a capacity of, I think it's 225, and most of the time it's sitting somewhere between 160 to 200 people. So very popular location. And there's a lot of foot traffic between the hotel and the botanical gardens. Now, of course, a resort needs a private beach. As you can see, this, the terrain issues there with the stairs, that's about the best I could do with it. I'm sure there's a better way of doing it, but that's what I came up with. This little pond here had a few issues with it. As you can see, there's a bit of flooding here. It's not really flooding, it is doing something weird, and it's like the water's not spilling out and flowing, it's just sitting there. So rather than remove the pond, I decide just to hide the water. This seems to go away on its own eventually anyway, so I'm not sure what's happening here. As everybody's probably very familiar by now, playing with the water in the game can have some issues, and we will see more of that later on. A tourist attraction like this would have a lot of tourists, and tourists usually show up by bus in private coaches. Tour groups. I'm going to strip away all the extra bits from the botanical gardens. This asset, as it, right out of the box, I don't like it. The building, though, is really cool. When you take a good close look at it, it's a really cool building. Everything around it, though, Once again, we're going to use some more of the path Netlanes here. These are much wider, like roads and stuff. It makes that really easy to do, actually, once you get the hang of how they line up. This building with my own custom landscaping around it, I think it looks much, much better. It ties into my whole build much better. So it's always good to customize landscaping around the buildings whenever possible. You'll get a much better result. Now I got the idea to use the Firewatch Tower here for create kind of a unique looking building, and this is the prop version of it, and I'm going to sink it all the way into the ground just so the top is exposed. And I'm going to give it a bit of a recolor here so it looks a little more appropriate for where it's sitting. I'm going to be turning it into a beachside coffee shop, cafe. This is a resort, so it's lattes and espresso. And I thought it needed a bit more of a building, so I'm adding a prop building to it as well. It's off the road, so I need a prop building, otherwise, you know, I'd have issues with it screaming for road access and stuff. I needed a building to represent the washrooms. Now, I didn't want to use like buildings that look like outhouses. It's a resort. I need something a little fancier, so I'm using 2 kiosks with the fronts placed together to hide it, and then yeah, it sort of works. Fits the build pretty good. Now this is a pretty substantial sized property. There's the Botanical Gardens, the hotel. All of that is going to require some maintenance, and that's what I'm building over here. For the botanical garden, they would need greenhouses to grow their bedding plants, their whatever else they might need for the gardens. And I'm going to use the prop version of the primary school extension here as the maintenance office. I started noticing this issue. So what's happening here is these are all tourists. None of these people live in the city. They're all from somewhere else. I don't know why they're walking away. So we have to put in a bus service for this later. For the maintenance building, obviously they need a garage. I'm going to use the taxi garage for that. Now the maintenance yards are not nearly as pristine as the resort itself, so I'm going to do a little extra detailing here for that. Right now I'm working on the botanical gardens out in the back. We're going to make a expansive park area behind the botanical gardens. It is the botanical gardens, but it has a fairly large outdoor area to it. So this is kind of a close-up view of how the Netlanes behave with the decals here. So you can see them. I believe there's been an update, so I think that's changed a bit. I had this idea of putting on all these elaborate garden beds and stuff for the botanical gardens, but the reality was it just all gets covered up with shrubs and trees and stuff. So this is the only one I do. I don't. There's no need putting in details that you're not going to see. For the plants, I'm using a combination of the prop plants that I can recolor and the California plants available on the mod store. I'm using mostly the California ones just for ease of use. The prop plants are great for recoloring, but it's a bit time consuming and it gets a bit confusing which ones are props and which ones are real after a while. I thought this prop tree recolored like this looked like kind of like a lilac. And because it's a botanical garden in the Pacific Northwest, there can be a few tropical plants, but gotta keep in mind we're right at the very edge of where they can grow, so you can't go crazy with those. Now, I did say in the last episode that the main industry for the town was weddings, and that's what we're putting in here. I imagine the Botanical Gardens makes quite a lot of money from weddings. I'm trying to go for a ornamental red maple tree here. Now, there's a fatal flaw in my build right here, and it's not visible yet, but it will become quite apparent pretty soon what's going on. And it's fixable, but annoying. I think this might have been the start of it right here. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to make this a functional creek. I just wanted to pool of water below the old mill. We're going to use Sully's wave textures here to kind of simulate water flowing down the creek. Yeah, don't worry about that water. It's no big deal. It'll go away. I might have had too many water sources in this lake. I don't know what I was doing here. Oh no. Oh, I guess the wedding is canceled. I think there's going to be an angry conversation about a non-refundable deposit there. And yeah, it gets quite bad. It eventually all goes away, but I was just surprised how far it went. So connected to the Botanical Gardens is a network of hiking trails up on the mountainside. So yeah, the mill, the Bosmans in kind of like, they get kind of petty, and they sold the land, but they didn't sell the mill, so they moved the mill. That's kind of where everybody got pissed off, and they moved it way up onto the property here. Now the tomb up on the hillside, one of the Bosmans built it at some point in the past. It has amazing views of the lake region, but to fit it into the landscape, we got to do a few things around here. What I'm trying to do here, these paths are not going to stay. I'm just using them as guidelines. A viewing platform to overlook the lake. Okay, I have to include a bit of public transit here. I can't have tourists walking out on foot, so we're going to do a bit of alterations here, and we're going to put in a couple of bus stops. These Japanese carports make excellent bus shelters. That brings us to the end of this episode. This was a lot of fun to build. I don't like to do detailing over the entire map, but it is fun to pick out certain locations and really focus and detail them out properly. And here comes the buses to pick up all the tourists. Yay! If you stuck around to the end of the episode, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. If you've gotten any use out of this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.